My sister-in-law recently texted me about a book that she had previously told me to check out. Her text was kind of something along the lines of like, "Ugh, I cannot recommend this book. I hate it so much." So when I asked her to elaborate on this and tell me, why it was so unbearable, she said that the author is just insufferable and she was so up on herself. And then she says to me, of course, you have to listen just to hear how much on her high horse she is. Now, I am a big believer that life is way too short to read bad books. If I don't like one, I will put it down in a heartbeat. And I'm not going to tell you the book that my sister in law and I were discussing, but I will tell you that sheer curiosity in this case got the best of me. And I know curiosity has been known to kill cats, but it did not kill me, but it did get the best of me. And I started to read the book. Now, the plot of the story actually did intrigue me, and I saved it in my to be read pile because I had another one going at the time. I want to see where it's going for sure. But, and the writing was, just as my sister in law described it, a little insufferable. So I tried to figure out why. What was it about the personality of this author, or was it the tone, or was it the writing? What was it that made it such a turnoff? And funny enough, I kind of had a recent experience where I was taking a class with a couple of other writers, and some I really, really loved. And then some I just had this really, it was kind of like really egregious to read. So I just chalked it up to like maybe it's too flowery or too purple prose. Like maybe it's just their style that I'm not jiving with. But when I dug into why I think that this book did not work out for me or my sister-in-law, why it did not feel good to us, I think that it helped to shed some light. And I don't want us to incidentally have this effect on listeners or readers with our own work, with our own writing, with our own podcasting, with our own content. So if you want to know what made this book so unbearable, my hunch. In this episode, we're going to get into it. We're going to get into what it means to make somebody else the hero of the story, even if it's your story, and how to balance vulnerability and truth telling, confidence and humility. These are the keys, I believe, to gaining long term trust and keeping people engaged and building community. So let's get into it. Welcome to Small Business Casual, the podcast for business owners building something sustainable, cozy, and tailored to their actual lives, not just their Google calendars. I'm your host, Emily Aborn, small business copywriter, lifelong learner, and Jeopardy contestant. From my sofa, of course. I'm here to walk alongside you as we make sense of the behind-the-scenes chaos and trade those stuffy business suits for our favorite slippers. Okay, so it should come as no surprise that nobody wants to be the bad guy in their own story. But I think that sometimes we can go a little bit in the opposite direction when we are trying to be the good guy or the hero. I see it website after website. It's not villains who are making themselves look like saints on the website per se. It's just innocent, well-meaning service providers and practitioners who accidentally make themselves the hero of a story that should really be about their client. And I do think that in that book, my sister-in-law and I were reading, that was the same approach that turned us away in the writing. It turned us off to what we were reading. And it might also be responsible for turning away your clients or your customers, or why your website might not be working for you as well. So I wanted to share today what it means to me to make your clients and your customers and your listeners the hero of the story, even if it's your story, without losing your voice, without losing yourself, and without losing some of the connection in the process. So we will get into what I think makes a website and frankly, some content a little bit insufferable, what to do to avoid that, and then also what to skip when you're looking to fix it. We're going to talk about how to keep your confidence and your storytelling and your personality intact along the way. And in case you are new here, I did see that we have some new listeners from Ashburn, Virginia, from Ludlow, Massachusetts, and from Middleton, Rhode Island. So hello to our newcomers. Whether you're new or a loyal listener, you are the reason I do this show. You are the hero of my podcast. You are the hero of my story. And I really hope that you love it here and that you stick around. I'm Emily Aborn. I am a copywriter by day and a podcaster and marketing strategist by day. And I'm I don't really do anything at night except sleep, but I'm so happy you're here. And I hope you have your slippers or your flip flops in hand and you're ready to talk small business. Cozy style, of course. If you want to connect with me after the show, just reach out to me on my website, emilyaborn.com, or connect with me on my personal playground, which is Instagram, where you can find me at Emily Aborn. Now, let's get into the good stuff. As a copywriter, I see a lot of websites before I write them, obviously. And also just as a human, I pay very close attention to websites in general, probably has something to do with my line of work, but I just am fascinated by the way that people portray themselves. So just the other day, I was signing up for an appointment with a health practitioner who I had been referred to by another health practitioner. And I was, it was kind of like a no-brainer situation where I was definitely going to see them because it was somebody I trusted who referred me. But as I'm on their website, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe they'll barter with me for website services because their website was in need of some help. Okay. It was all about them. And I remember thinking as I was booking the appointment, like, is this person sure that they can help me with my specific issue? So in this person's instance, what that looked like was a pileup of the I's and the we's and the hours, and every single sentence just kind of like circled back to them, their credentials, their story. But the actual client, the actual customer, me in this instance, was completely missing from the copy. The about page was just a resume with like a little extra caffeine or something. And there was just one very, very tiny blurb with little drop down bullets. You really had to work to get to it, talking about conditions we treat. And frankly, it was all a little bit of jargon. And I have a nutrition background. I studied health education and nutrition in college, and I read about that stuff all the time. I research my brains out around it. And I was able to translate it. But I think if you hadn't had that background, it would probably just read like, some paper from your doctor or something. Now, I imagine most of this person's clients are coming in with a little bit more of a lay person's perspective, a lay person's lens, which our clients likely are too when it comes to our specific industries. So the last thing that got under my skin, then I will stop tearing down this website. The last thing that got under my skin was this really lengthy description of the process from discovery to like kind of, success or whatever. And when it was written out, I have to say, it just kind of read to me like, oh my God, this is going to be a headache of paperwork and consultations. And like, when does that part end and the healing begin? And again, there was no real correlation to how all of those steps in the process benefited us, the patients looking for care. So I also think that people set about doing entire podcasts like this. People write stories like this, or emails, or social posts. They write entire books like this, right? They share content in this particular way where it is so clearly kind of just about them and forgets that there is a person on the other side taking in the material. So I think this mistake can apply to literally any form of content you're creating, and it's more about the undercurrent of the message. Anything that is meant to help or to engage with other people to create that connection, but just ends up really missing the mark. So I will keep this away from like the literature focus and keep it focused on small business. That's probably why you're here. And that is realistically what my area of expertise is and what this podcast is all about. When you do have a business or a podcast, most often people are coming to you because they want to solve some sort of problem. So when they accidentally walk into your highlight reel or all of the things that make you so wonderful or all about you, we get this little twinge of wondering, like, does this person really want to help me, or do they just kind of want to talk about themselves? And it can turn us off very, very quickly. So I want to help prevent you from making that mistake, whether it is your website or your podcast. Hopefully you can we'll kind of apply it to everything that we're creating and working on. So what is the fix? How do we avoid this? And what is the fix if we are currently doing this? All right, I'm going to show you also what to skip because there are, okay, we'll start there actually. I am not a fan of the story brand framework from Donald Miller. Now, if you are, no, there's nothing wrong with it per se. I'm just not a fan. I don't like all the pain point focus in there. I don't really care for generic formulas. That is not how I write. That is not how I write for my clients. I do think that it kind of gives everybody a little bit of a same seas but different feel, and everybody just, it's a little generic. However, there are some very good concepts within the framework. And one of that, and the main crux of the message, is that your customers, your clients, your listeners, your readers, your audience, and this is just the basis of good customer service as well. Whatever you call those people on the other side of your business, they are the heroes. You, me, we are merely the guides. Okay. So, as the guide, we definitely want to see the hero. We want to understand the hero. We want to recognize the hero and cheer them on in their strengths, but also help to overcome their weaknesses, right? We want them to transform and win as the hero. So how do we get into that? How do we do that? We're going to get into it with some really, really tangible steps. But first and foremost, I believe it comes from an actual place in your heart. It comes from feeling empathy for these people. Real empathy, not just tapping on their pain points, not just creating pain points or amplifying their fears, but not letting them, but showing them real, true empathy, true care, that you really, really care and you want the best for them. And then we don't want to let them wallow in their pain, right? We want to show them the possibility, show them how they could win, show them the opportunity, because we want to give them hope. We want to give them the belief in themselves that this is possible for them to achieve as well. So the way that we demonstrate this is to help say, you know what? I know what you're going through, and I want to help you unlock the door to get to where you want to be. So here are the actual concrete doable moves that we could start doing today. So with your next podcast episode or your next email newsletter or your next social post or the next time you overhaul or decide to change some things on your website, I have 7 things you can be on the lookout for. And if these feel overwhelming or confusing, make sure to hang out with me at the end, because I do have one more idea where I can help make it a little bit simpler if you need the extra support. So, number 1, count your U's and your I's. All you have to do to start this process is go to any piece of content. You could go to your homepage. You could go to your latest social post. You could go to your last email. You can listen to a podcast episode of yours. Count the I's and the U's. And when I say that, I mean the I's, me's. So I would be saying on my website, I, or me, or our, or we. Wow, that is a mouthful. And on your website, you would be saying that about yourself. Then you're going to compare it with the yous, how often you talk about your client, your customer, you, your, right? I don't know any other possessives in that. So you're going to look at that, and you're going to see how many sentences center on you versus them. So we're going to see how many sentences versus I, we, my, our versus the reader, you, your. Now, obviously, we need both. Okay. You're not going to like totally 100% be able to write a website that's completely your and you, but we need to have a balance. So we need to show them, And then also show them how we help, how we guide. And if it's lopsided, you're going to quickly go from giving them a lot of great information to being a turnoff, or giving them the picture of possibility to being a turnoff, or whatever, transformation versus why you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. So that's number one, count your I's versus your U's. Second one, start with their transformation, not your title. This is one of the mistakes I most often see. People love doing this in their hero section. If you don't know what a hero section is, it's the part at the top of the website page. They love to just put their logo there, or their business name, or their credentials, right? Like a nurse practitioner. Now, I think that is great. We want our credentials places, and there are ways to do this that are quite subtle, by the way, that you can still have those great credentials at the top of the page, and it's very subtle and classy, I would say. But really, we want that first opening statement, that piece at the top of the page. We want it to reflect who the person is that is visiting our website. Or interacting with our content. And we want it to reflect them and who they want to become, or what problem they're looking to solve. So this is not an ideal spot to put your job description or the name of your business, or I wouldn't put how many years I've been copywriting or how many industries or clients I've written for. Those will come later. And we'll talk about how we're going to make those beneficial to them as well. But we want to start with their transformation, the picture of possibility. Okay. We want to really create that feeling for them of like, oh my gosh, this is the place for me right off the bat. First sentence should speak right to them. Number 3, the about page. I'm so sorry to tell you, it is not actually about you. It is not actually about me. The about page is super valuable, the real estate on your website, and it is still about them. Now, this is a sneaky one, and I remind my clients of this a lot, time and time and time again. It's actually something I have to re-educate people on quite a lot. But the about page, I know it feels like this permission slip to like talk about yourself, right? I mean, it's called the about page. And yes, I want you to share your personal story. I want you to share about yourself, especially if it offers a kind of like connection with the reader, or it's a message of hope, or it's talking about why you are so curious about what you do, why you're so passionate and interested in what you do. That is fantastic. But we want to make sure that your story earns a place on that page, and it's got to work for it, let me tell you, because we want your story to be part of earning their trust as well. The way you do that is to connect what you do to serving them. So as you're telling your story and you're sharing your credentials, you want to keep asking yourself, what does that mean for my client? How does this benefit them? If you have 12 years in business, maybe you use that as a moment to share something like, you know what, 12 plus years of copywriting for over 122 industries. I mean, you're not my first rodeo, okay, girlfriend? And you're getting experience and refinement. You're getting my experience and my refined expertise from having done the work with thousands of business owners like you. So something like that. I'm totally just riffing, but something that connects to what is advantageous to them. That's my point here. Now, number 4, this one is super duper important. We want to mirror their words, not your jargon. You remember me talking about the drop down on that health practitioner site and how it all just kind of read like a sciencey health textbook. We want to use the actual language that people are using when they describe their problem and their wins. I will use an example from her site. Instead of talking about SIBO, which not everybody knows what that is, you might talk about the actual stomach pains or stomach issues that somebody is having as a result of that. Okay. So SIBO, for those of you who don't know, stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I was just looking at a nurse practitioner site and I noticed that. I'm like, I don't know if everybody knows what that is. Now, the best way to do this is twofold. First of all, you want to listen to what your customers actually say, clients or customers, before, during, and after. So they're going to come to you with a problem and they talk about it in a very specific way. And they don't always talk about it like we talk about it. Sometimes they have a totally different way of describing what it looks like to hire a copywriter. They don't even know sometimes what a copywriter is. Like I would say like 40% of the time, they don't know what a copywriter is. They just know what the problem is. So I listen to how they talk about it before. I listen to how they talk about it during. What do they like and not like about the process? What feels challenging along the way, right? And then I want to hear what they talk about after. What is that transformation in their words to them? So, another way you can do this, in addition to just listening to your clients, is to read their testimonials and participate in places that they are. So, like group threads and Facebook groups and chats and things like that. And you're able to see what people are saying about the issues that they're having, what they're saying about their pain, how it affects their lives. And then you also can see when people get solutions, what that transformation feels like for them. And you can use that in your copy. Okay. And it is fantastic because, I mean, this is my true favorite anti-formulaic, super specific move as a copywriter. You source it from the people who are actually having the very people that you're serving. When you source it from the very people that you're serving, you can't help but miss the mark. You can't help but hit the target. And you're going to prevent yourself from not being generic because you're literally using their words. It makes them feel very seen and very heard, makes people be like, oh my gosh, me too. This person gets me. This is exactly what I need. And that is exactly the point. That is exactly the job that we want our content to be doing. Number 5, when sharing results on your website or on social media, let your testimonials also make the client the hero. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. When I was putting this together, I said, you know what? I don't think that I do that. I need to do some cleanup aisle 5 on my own website. The fact of the matter is, this one can be hard because our clients give us testimonials raving about us. They're talking about our great process or how nice of a job we did or how we did this for them, blah, 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 blah. But is there a way, perhaps, that we can also feature wins where our client is the protagonist? Like, for example, Sarah, instead of me saying, I helped Sarah launch and book out in 6 weeks, or I did the copy for Sarah's website and she launched and booked out in 6 weeks, thanks to me, we can just say, Sarah launched and booked out in 6 weeks, not where you're praising your own genius, right? So I got a testimonial recently just in my email. It was from a strategy call that I had done with somebody, and it really lended itself perfect to this lesson for me. I was able to take her words. Thank you so much for your guidance. The overwhelm has dissipated. I've been able to make more progress on my business to-do list than I have in a long time. So that is 100% like it's all her doing the work. You know, I was just there as the listening ear, as the one to provide her with a little support and some help and some ideas. But she was the one that pushed the pencil and did the work. Our clients are the heroes. Okay. They are always the heroes. So it's very subtle. But I do think that it signals to people that maybe are considering working with you that when they work with you, they are the winners. They win, which is what a guide's proof, what a guide would show the hero. Number 6, remember we have 7, so we have 2 more. Number 6 is run the so what for the reader. So what for the reader? So we're going to ask ourselves, so what for the reader, every single line or every single kind of page, let's say. So when you share something about yourself, I want you to just run it through this simple test. So what? What does it mean for the person reading? If their brains are asking it, and they are, if they're already asking, so what? We want to be able to quickly answer their brains with how it benefits them. So the other way to do this is to reframe features that you're sharing, reframe them into benefits. So if you'll remember, I stumbled upon that woman's discovery process. Now, she did not make that thing benefit focused, and she could have very easily. So when she's talking about that onboarding process, she could have talked about how she has a thorough questionnaire to ensure she has a deep understanding of my health history or my current challenges or my healing goals. She could have talked about how that discovery call, it ensures that neither of us are wasting time and I'm not wasting my money if I have needs that aren't the right fit for her. So the more people don't necessarily care, I don't think, about every single step in our processes. We love them. They keep us on track. They keep them on track. They give us great boundaries, right? They do care that you have a process. They don't want you to just be winging everything. But I don't think they care about the ins and outs of every single step. But what I do think they care about is when they know that you have a process that directly benefits them, when you put the emphasis on the benefits versus the features, they are all over that. That is speaking their language and again, making them the hero. Because remember, they have to go through the process. It's a journey for them just as much as you're leading them through the journey. So just keep that in mind. Well, how does this leg of the journey, like, am I going to be too tired on this leg of the journey? How does it benefit me? So run your stuff through the so what check for your readers, for your listeners. Keep asking. Their brains are asking it. So yours should be too. And number 7, lastly, of course, there is that standard, book an appointment or contact me button or call now. I think those are fine. Personally, I know people like to get cutesy with those. I don't have anything wrong with just the normal old standard buttons. Sometimes I'll have fun, but a lot of times I just keep them simple and direct, especially for a lot of my clients who want that kind of elevated feel. I'm not going to put in something cheeky into their little call to action buttons. However, your preluding calls to action are calls to action in general, just kind of everywhere. The kind of like invitation, if you want to think of it that way, it should really point to their next step, not just like book on my calendar or schedule now. So, for example, instead of saying, are you ready to book your consultation or book your discovery call? You might try something else. You might try something like get the website that works for you while you sleep. Then you have the button. Or want marketing that works as hard as you do. Then you get the button. So that might be something to just kind of play out instead of just the standard register here. This is another one I'm very, very guilty of. Okay. And lest you think I am suggesting that you just take all your expertise and your hard-earned experience and your years of work and you just shove them in a little box, never for the world to see. No, I am not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that you dull your personality or your light or your stories or your credentials or your experience. I'm not saying sand off your confidence and take yourself out of the picture. I'm not talking about being super humble or being meek. Okay. The guide is actually a very strong, confident leadership role. And you are there to be the authority, the one who has the knowledge and the information and the tools, and you can absolutely help. And here is the proof. So the balance is going to be finding, and it is key, finding where you're keeping the spotlight on that hero, your clients and customers and listeners and readers. But I don't think that means you have to sacrifice confidence. And I also think that confidence and humility, when you get that fine balance, that's where that, and authenticity, let's just throw that in there too. But I think that's where the message comes across a little better, and you're not going to be turning so many people off, and you won't get text messages from my sister, or I won't get text messages from my sister-in-law. That's like, that was a horrible to read. It requires some self-awareness to know when you're up on your high horse or when you're trying to make yourself self-important, or you really have to say, am I coming at this from a place of service? Because you are the guide, they're the hero, and we are there to really be of service to that hero. So the combination, when you get it right, when you strike the right balance, it really reads as trustworthy. And without it, well, you got some insufferable reading or listening. So bringing it all home, making your customer the hero, for me, at its core, that is kind of like a community act. Like, that is my goal with this podcast too. It is not treating people on my email list or listening to my podcast as my audience or on social media. It really is about kind of like, evening the playing field a little bit more. We are on the same team. I'm doing this for them, and I want to do my darndest to give my skills and my expertise and my knowledge and help them any way I can to succeed. And that's when we really shift, I think, to saying, you know what, this is not about me. This is not about my success. It's not about my ego. It's about you and your success. That is what I think really turns people, your community, on. It builds that sense of belonging, and belonging is what turns our customers, those people on our email list, those listeners, it turns them into a real loyal community that craves coming back to you and wants to read more and listen to more. So remember, you do not need to be any longer an unknowingly insufferable narrator. I'm not saying you are, but you don't have to make yourself the hero to prove that you're worth hiring. You prove it by making the reader feel seen and heard and understood and like the most capable person in the room. You take their hand and you lead the way steadily, but you're alongside them while you do. And if this all just sounded like a little too much or overwhelming, I actually can help you. I could be your guide. Just kidding. But not kidding. I do offer strategy sessions, and I also offer like some done with you copy and editing services where we can go over all of this together. I really help you to see the big areas and the small areas, how you want to maybe make a shift, and really tailor your content to who you're speaking to super specifically. So I want always to help you make sure that you're not turning people away or coming off like, you know, you have something to prove. That all said, you can find out more about that stuff at my website, emilyaborn.com. Shoot me an email. All the links are in the show notes. But what I also want to say to you is if there's anything else in this that was unclear or you want more on, or you're like, oh my gosh, that was it for me, that was the game changer, I really want to hear from you and let me know. I'm always game to talk about any topic that you want, as long as it's in my area of knowledge. So send me those messages, and I guess I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me on this week's episode of Small Business Casual. If you're considering a rebrand, starting something new, or ready to upgrade your website copy to reflect the brand you've already built, I'd be delighted to help you find just the right words for your business. Reach out to me at emilyaborn.com, and I would love to hear from you.